There's a road in coastal Georgia that locals refuse to name out loud after dark. Not because they're superstitious, not because they're dramatic, but because more than 100 years of documented experiences have taught them that some things are better left undisturbed. They call it Moon River Road, a stretch of cracked asphalt and crushed gravel that winds through the swamp-heavy low country southeast of Savannah, following the dark curve of the Moon River through stands of ancient live oaks draped so thick with Spanish moss that even on a cloudless night, the road beneath is swallowed in absolute blackness. You can drive it in under 10 minutes, but according to the people who have tried, and the ones who came back, those 10 minutes will never fully leave you. Savannah, Georgia is already one of the most haunted cities in America. That's not folklore. That's a reputation built over 3 centuries of war, plague, massacre, and shallow graves. The city was founded in 1733 on land the Yamacraws had called home for generations, and it grew fast, too fast for a place built on top of so much death. Yellow fever swept through Savannah's streets in 1820 with such savage efficiency that nearly 700 people died in a matter of weeks. The bodies piled up faster than the living could bury them. Mass graves were dug in Colonial Park Cemetery. Families were wiped out overnight. Entire neighborhoods fell silent, not from evacuation, but from extinction. And the spirits of those who died violent, sudden, and unnamed deaths, they didn't simply vanish, they stayed. They soaked into the brick and the soil and the dark water of the rivers that ring this city like a funeral wreath. Moon River itself was already famous long before the ghosts claimed it. Songwriter Johnny Mercer, a native of Savannah, immortalized the river in 1961 with a melody that made it sound gentle, romantic, a river of dreams and summer light. But Mercer was writing from memory and longing. He was writing about something beautiful, yes. He was not writing about what lives along the banks after midnight. The Moon River, in reality, is a tidal waterway that stretches through the Georgia Lowcountry south of Savannah, threading through Isle of Hope, Skidaway Island, and the marshland communities that make up what is now called the Moon River District. It is gorgeous in daylight, without question. Spanish moss catches the morning light like silver thread. Great blue herons stand motionless in the shallows. The whole scene looks painted. But drive the road that follows the river after the sun goes down, and the painting changes entirely. The road becomes something else. The canopy of oaks closes in above you like a cathedral built for the dead. Fog rolls off the marsh water and collects on the asphalt, low and gray, sometimes so thick that your headlights simply disappear into it a few feet ahead of the hood. The Spanish moss, which looked beautiful 12 hours ago, now hangs like rotting curtains in a window that hasn't been opened in decades. And then the silence comes. Not natural silence, not the silence of an empty road late at night. This is a different kind of silence, the kind that has weight to it, the kind that tells you with absolute certainty that you are not alone. The first documented account of something wrong on this stretch of road dates back to the Civil War era, though the story wasn't written down until much later. In November of 1864, General William Tecumseh Sherman led Union forces on his infamous March to the Sea, a campaign of calculated destruction that began in Atlanta and ended at the coast of Savannah. Tens of thousands of soldiers passed through the Georgia Lowcountry, burning farms, seizing supplies, and leaving behind the dead, both theirs and the Confederate forces who tried to stop them. The Moon River corridor was not spared. Skirmishes took place in the marsh and along the tree lines. Some men died quickly, others were left wounded in the mud and the water and died slowly, alone in the dark. Their names were never recorded. Their bodies were never retrieved. And there are people in Savannah today, historians, not ghost hunters, who will tell you quietly that the land along Moon River Road still holds something from that time, a residual energy, a presence, something that never received its burial and still does not understand why. But that's only the beginning. What happened in the decades that followed is far more personal and far more terrifying. The yellow fever outbreaks that devastated Savannah throughout the 1800s didn't just claim lives inside the city. People fled Savannah during the epidemics, moving south and east along the river roads in desperate attempts to escape the disease that was eating the city alive. Families loaded wagons and rode through the night, children wrapped in blankets, adults already burning with fever and not yet aware of it. Many of them didn't make it. The Moon River Road was a route of exodus that became a route of death. People collapsed on the road. They died in the marsh. Their bodies were found days or weeks later by farmers and road workers who had no way of knowing who they were or where they came from. They were buried where they fell, unmarked, unconsecrated, unremembered, in the soft, dark ground beside the road. No one knows exactly how many. No records were kept, but the graves are there. And everyone who has ever spent a night on Moon River Road seems to know that instinctively, the way you know something is wrong before you can explain why. The rule, the one every local knows, the one that gets repeated in low voices in Savannah bars and whispered to newcomers who ask too many questions, is simple. It has never been written on a sign. It doesn't need to be. If you drive Moon River Road after dark and something appears behind you, whether in your rearview mirror or at the edge of your headlights as you pull away, you do not look back. Not once, not a glance, because they say that whatever walks Moon River Road after midnight is waiting for exactly that. The moment you acknowledge it, the moment your eyes confirm what your instincts already know, it follows, and it doesn't stop. The story of the man at the end of the road is the one that never changes, no matter who tells it or how many years have passed. Accounts going back to at least the early 20th century describe the same figure in the same place at the same time of night. A tall, gaunt man in dark, ragged clothing, standing at the far southern bend of Moon River Road, where the pavement gives way to gravel and the tree line presses in from both sides. He is always standing, never moving, never facing you directly. His head is turned slightly as if he is looking at something in the tree line to his left, something only he can see. Some accounts describe a lantern in his hand, casting an amber glow that doesn't quite reach the ground beneath his feet. Some say he carries a long-handled tool, a shovel or an axe, held loosely at his side the way a man holds something he's been carrying so long it's become part of him. And every single account ends the same way. He doesn't approach, he doesn't speak, but if you look back after you've passed him, if you check that rear-view mirror before the bend takes him out of sight, he is no longer standing where you left him. He is closer, sometimes much closer, and he is now looking directly at you. The Georgia Low Country has a long tradition of road spirits and pathwalkers. Gullah Geechee folklore, passed down through the African American communities who have lived along this coastline for centuries, speaks of beings that occupy the in-between spaces, the edges of roads, the thresholds between marshland and dry ground, the places where one world meets another. These are not simply ghost stories in the Western tradition. They are warnings encoded in culture, passed down because the people who created them understood the land at a level that most people never achieve. The Moon River Corridor has a significant Gullah Geechee heritage, and the elders of communities like Sandfly and Pinpoint, neighborhoods that sit just inland from the Moon River banks, have spoken about Moon River Road in terms that go beyond simple ghost sightings. They describe it as a liminal place, a road that doesn't know it's a road, a stretch of ground that remembers everything that happened on it and refuses to let those memories dissolve. You need to understand what that road looks like at 2 in the morning before you can understand why the stories feel so immediate and so real. There are no streetlights, not a single one. The nearest house sits a quarter-mile back from the road, set deep into the tree line, and on most nights there are no lights visible anywhere in any direction. When the moon is behind clouds, and in the Georgia Low Country, clouds come off the marsh fast and silent, the darkness is complete. Not dim, not shadowy, complete. You hold your hand up in front of your face and you cannot see it. Your headlights become the entire world. Everything outside that cone of pale yellow light simply ceases to exist. And it is precisely in that surrounding nothing where the sightings happen most consistently. Not in the light, but at the absolute outer edge of it, just before the dark takes over. Movement, a shape, something that was not there a second ago and will not be there when you look directly at it. Multiple people over multiple decades have reported the same experience. They are driving slowly, headlights cutting through the fog, and at the periphery of the light, maybe 30 yards to the left or right of the road, they catch movement. Something tall, something walking at the same speed as the car, but not on any visible path, moving through dense brush and standing water without sound, without hesitation. One driver, a man from Statesboro who documented his experience in 2018 on a Georgia Paranormal forum, wrote that the figure kept pace with his car for nearly a full minute. He watched it in his peripheral vision, afraid to look directly at it. When he finally could not stand the tension and turned his head to look, there was nothing there. He drove to the end of the road, turned around, and when he passed the same stretch on his way back out, he saw it again, on the same side, in the same position, walking at the same pace. This time, he kept his eyes on the road. He did not look directly at it. He did not look back. He drove out without stopping and didn't return for 3 years. And there is something even stranger, something that investigators and casual visitors alike have documented that goes beyond visual sightings. Electronics die on Moon River Road. Not gradually, not with any warning, they simply stop. Phones lose their charge in minutes. Recording devices shut off mid-session. Car engines, in at least a dozen reported cases, stall completely without mechanical cause, leaving drivers stranded in perfect silence in the dark with absolutely no explanation and no one coming to help. One paranormal investigator from Savannah brought a full kit: EMF meters, thermal cameras, audio recorders, and set up a stationary observation near the southern bend of Moon River Road in 2021. Within 40 minutes, every single piece of equipment had failed. Not just battery drain, the devices themselves malfunctioned in ways that their technical specifications said were impossible. He got one clear audio recording before his equipment died. When he played it back later, he heard his own voice asking a question into the darkness, and then, quiet and close, just beneath the threshold of normal hearing, he heard something answer. He has never released that recording publicly. When asked why, he says simply, "Some things, once shared, cannot be taken back." In October of 2022, a local news crew from a Savannah television station drove Moon River Road as part of a Halloween special on Georgia's most haunted locations. They filmed everything: the canopy of oaks in the headlights, the fog on the asphalt, the vast darkness pressing in from both sides. Their segment ran for 4 minutes on local television and included interviews with 3 residents of the Moon River District who agreed to speak on camera. What is remarkable is not what they said, but what they wouldn't say. Each interview subject asked directly whether they had ever personally experienced anything unusual on the road, gave the same hesitant pause before speaking, that particular kind of pause that isn't uncertainty, but is unmistakably a decision about how much to reveal. All 3 confirmed they had seen things. All 3 declined to describe what those things were. One woman, elderly, who had lived in the area her entire life, looked directly at the camera and said very quietly, "You don't talk about it. You don't talk about him. And you don't ever look back." The crew editor nearly cut the line for being too vague. The producer kept it. It became the most watched clip from that segment by a significant margin. The question of who or what haunts Moon River Road has occupied paranormal researchers, local historians, and amateur investigators for generations. The most persistent theory, and the one most deeply embedded in local folklore, centers on a figure who may have been real once. The story goes like this. Sometime in the years following the Civil War, a man came to the Moon River area from the north, a drifter, a laborer, no one who left a paper trail. He worked for a time on the roads, part of the post-war infrastructure effort that used formerly enslaved men and poor laborers to repair and extend the road network throughout the Georgia Lowcountry. The work was brutal, and the pay was almost nothing. Men died from heat, from accident, from violence, and from the same diseases that had been killing Savannah for decades. This particular man, whose name, if he had one, is lost, died on the road. Not from disease, not from accident, from something else. The story varies in its details. Some versions say he was killed by other workers over a debt. Some say he was struck by a wagon and left in the ditch. Some say he simply walked into the marsh one night and didn't come back, and that his body was never found. What every version agrees on is this: he died with something unfinished, something unresolved. And that kind of death, in the folk tradition of the Georgia coast, produces a very specific kind of spirit. Not one that wanders aimlessly, one that waits, one that watches the road because the road is the last thing it understood, and one that, if it locks eyes with the living, holds on. The don't look back rule is older than any specific story about this road. It appears in Gullah Geechee folk tradition as a foundational warning about interacting with the restless dead. The logic is not supernatural superstition. It has a profound internal consistency rooted in the belief system of a people who lived closer to death than most. The idea is this: the dead who linger in liminal places, roads, crossroads, thresholds, water's edges, are drawn to the energy of the living. They can sense your presence, they can follow your movement, but they cannot bridge the gap between their world and yours unless you create a connection, and the connection is made through the eyes. In this tradition, direct eye contact, or the act of turning back to look at something that is following you, is not just a psychological acknowledgement, it is an invitation. It says, "I see you, I know you are there." And for a spirit that has been unseen and unknown for 150 years, that recognition is more powerful than anything else. Once you've looked, it follows. Once it follows, it doesn't stop at the end of the road. Several people claim that whatever they encountered on Moon River Road did not stay on the road. A couple from Savannah who drove the road on a dare in 2019 reported nothing unusual during the drive itself. No lights, no figures, no stalled engine. But the woman passenger, who admitted to looking in the rearview mirror repeatedly throughout the drive out of nervous habit, woke up that night at 3 a.m. to the sound of footsteps in the hallway of her apartment. She was on the 4th floor. The building had a coded entry and no exterior stairs. The footsteps were slow and deliberate. They stopped outside her bedroom door. She did not open it. In the morning, there was nothing in the hall. But the experience repeated. Not every night, not predictably, but often enough and consistently enough that she eventually moved out of that apartment. She has not driven Moon River Road again. When asked if she thinks the two events are connected, she says she doesn't think anything. She knows. The idea that what haunts a road can travel with you is not unique to Georgia or to this stretch of low-country pavement, but there is something about Moon River Road specifically, something about the convergence of history it carries, that makes the phenomenon feel different here. This is not a road with one ghost. This is a road with layers of the dead, each generation's losses pressed down on top of the last like sediment. Civil War soldiers who died in the marsh and were never recovered. Yellow fever victims who collapsed on this road while trying to flee and were buried where they fell. Laborers who built this road and were killed on it and forgotten. Enslaved people who walked this ground for generations before any of them were allowed to be named in the historical record. All of them are here. And the man at the end of the road, the one who stands at the bend with his lantern, the one who keeps pace with your car in the dark, the one who moves closer the moment you look back, may simply be the one who is most willing to be seen. But what happens when you don't just see him? What happens when you stop? No one who has stopped their car voluntarily at the southern bend of Moon River Road after midnight has left without a story. That sentence sounds like hyperbole. It is not. The accounts accumulated across decades of local reporting, paranormal investigation, and informal testimony describe a remarkably consistent pattern, the kind of consistency that makes serious researchers take notice precisely because no coordinated fraud could explain it across so many unconnected people over so many years. Something happens at that bend, something that doesn't respond to flashlights or cameras or rationalization. It responds to stillness, to silence, to the absence of forward movement, as if the entity, whatever it is, has been waiting for exactly that, for someone to finally stop running and just sit in the dark with it. In 2021, a paranormal investigation team from Atlanta drove to Moon River Road as part of a series on Georgia's most reported haunted locations. They were experienced investigators, not television personalities performing drama for a camera, but methodical researchers with years of fieldwork. They parked at the southern bend just after midnight. 2 of them sat in the car, 2 stood outside with audio recording equipment. For the first 20 minutes, nothing happened. The marsh was quiet. The fog was thin that night. They noted some minor EMF fluctuations that could have been explained by the car's own electronics. And then, all at once, the temperature dropped. Not gradually, not the way temperature drops when a cloud covers the moon. It dropped 8 degrees Fahrenheit in under 30 seconds. All 4 investigators felt it simultaneously and independently noted the time. One of the 2 standing outside reported seeing a light appear in the tree line to the left of the road, a single amber-orange orb, roughly the size and brightness of a lantern, hovering approximately 4 feet off the ground. It did not move toward them. It did not move away. It simply held there, steady and inexplicable, for just under 2 minutes. Then it went out, not gradually, all at once. And in the moment of its extinguishing, the thermal camera captured something on the road itself, a heat signature, vaguely human in shape, standing approximately 30 feet from the nearest investigator. By the time they had processed what they were seeing, it was gone. They reviewed the audio from that session for weeks afterward. On the clean recording, separated from ambient noise and road interference, they isolated 3 distinct sounds in the 2 minutes following the light's disappearance. The first was footsteps, slow, deliberate, on gravel. The second was a sound that none of them could categorize with certainty, a low, sustained tone that one investigator described as breathing that isn't quite breathing. The third was a word, singular, barely audible, spoken, it seemed, from very close to the recorder's microphone, so close that it shouldn't have been possible without someone standing directly beside the device. The word, repeated multiple times in the cleaned-up audio, is unmistakable. It is simply, stay. The investigators did not stay. They packed their equipment and left. 2 of them have returned to Moon River Road since then, drawn back by the inexplicable pull that seems to attach itself to anyone who takes this road seriously. 2 of them have not. What is notable is that neither of the ones who left and have not returned will discuss the experience in detail. One of them quit active paranormal investigation entirely within a year of that night. Both confirm, when pressed, that something happened to them on Moon River Road that they cannot explain within any framework they trusted before arriving. Neither one looked back as they drove out. They had been told not to. They chose to follow that single instruction, even in the middle of a structured scientific investigation. When you are standing in the dark on Moon River Road at 2 in the morning with a thermal camera and an EMF reader, and everything in your body is screaming at you to turn and look, and you choose not to, that tells you something. That tells you that the rule is older and deeper than intellectual skepticism, that it reaches something below the rational mind, that it is, on some wordless level, recognized as true. The Moon River District today is a place of historical preservation and coastal tourism. Visit Savannah's official website describes it warmly. Nature trails, a heritage museum at Pinpoint, Bethesda Academy, the beauty of Skidaway Island State Park. All of that is real and all of it is genuinely beautiful. But the district also holds something else, something that doesn't make it onto the tourist brochures. It holds the weight of everything that happened here before the signs went up and the nature trails were cut. It holds the Civil War dead who never made it home, the yellow fever victims who collapsed in the marsh and were swallowed by the Georgia Lowcountry without a marker or a name, the enslaved people whose labor built every road in this region and whose deaths were recorded nowhere, the laborers and drifters and forgotten men who lived and died on these roads when no one was keeping track. All of it is still here. You can feel it on Moon River Road the moment the trees close in above you and the last trace of highway light disappears behind the bend. People continue to drive Moon River Road at night. Curiosity is a powerful force, and there is something deeply human about the impulse to test the boundaries of the known world, to go to the edge of what feels safe and peer over it. Teenagers from Savannah dare each other. Paranormal enthusiasts plan overnight trips. Skeptics drive it once with their windows down and their music turned up, trying to logic their way through the darkness. Most of them come back. Most of them are unchanged or tell themselves they are. But a percentage of them, and it is not a small percentage, come back quieter. They come back with that particular look, the one that is not fear exactly, but is the face of someone who has reassessed something fundamental, something that cannot be put back the way it was. The rule has never changed, and it never will. You drive the road, and you do not stop, and you do not open the window, and you do not look behind you at whatever your peripheral vision is catching in the dark. You do not look back in the rearview mirror when you're pulling away from the bend, and you do not, under any circumstances, make the mistake of thinking that the road ends when the pavement ends. The road ends when whatever walks it decides you've gone far enough. And if you looked back, if you met those eyes even for a second in that amber glow at the edge of your headlights, then it doesn't. Not at the county line, not at your front door, not in the daylight of the next morning when everything seems ordinary and safe and the Spanish moss and the trees looks beautiful again, just like the song said it would. It follows, and it doesn't stop.